So it seems that everywhere else, every other place where there's fencing, people start bouting really early. Sometimes the very first day. They hand the new students a foil, set them out there, let them have at it. And we don't do that. So talk a little bit about why we don't do that and what we do instead.
Bouting. Let me start by saying this. If you're smart, you'll spend 90% of your time developing your skill and about 10% of your time demonstrating your skill. And you need to know the difference between developing skill and demonstrating skill. Let me use an example. Imagine Olympic lifting, or powerlifting, squats and deadlifts and bench press. And somebody comes to your gym, he wants to learn how to do that. And the first week in the gym, you let him go out and do a deadlifting and squat tournament, right? Squat competition, deadlifting, right? If that guy doesn't get injured, it's going to be a major miracle, because there's skill involved in those things. If you don't know how to deadlift correctly and pile a bunch of weight on that bar and go out there to win a deadlifting contest, you're just going to hurt yourself. Much the same is true with fencing. You cannot demonstrate a skill that you do not have. Do I need to explain that further, or are you with me, right? You cannot demonstrate a skill that you don't have. And skill acquisition takes time. There's nobody who's born fencing. This is all learned behavior. This is like learning to play the cello, right? It takes time. It requires the fine coordination of small muscles and tiny movements. It requires your brain and your body to acquire movement patterns that are unlike anything else it's ever done. And so if you put yourself on the spot and say, okay, I'm going to have this fencing contest now, what's going to happen is your brain and your body is not going to be able to do the fine new patterns that you've been working on. So it's going to substitute all the old patterns it knows, right? And what happens is exactly what we see. That instead of delicate, fine, tight, almost invisible movements of the sword on a subtle, slick, deadly level, we see hopping and jumping and poking and hoping, right? Because they don't have the fine skills. When you try to perform too soon, your fine skills go right down the toilet, and you'll substitute gross motor skills. And so it's counterproductive. The question is, what is bouting too early and what is not? Very simple. When your student has acquired the skills, then you may demonstrate the skills. Or you may attempt to demonstrate the skills. Right? So you go through a process. There's some technical training. You go through tactical exercises where you have to execute your skills under increasing levels of stress, right? And increasing levels of spontaneity, until you're able to step in with somebody and say, nothing planned, no particular tactical instructions, just hit and don't get hit. Boom, try it. And watch what happens. Do they maintain their balance? Do they maintain their focus, their line, their distance? Do they execute the moves the way they're supposed to be, or do they go to pieces? Well, if they execute the moves the way they're supposed to be executed in practice, then maybe you let them try a little bouting. If they can't do it in practice, under control, and keep a cool head about it, they're not ready yet. And if you put someone into a bouting situation before they're ready, they should sue you for malpractice. Because you're not only not teaching them, you're making it more difficult for them to learn in the future. People do it because somebody walks in, they've seen the movies or something. Very few people have seen fencing tournaments, but they've seen the movies, so they want to do that. When they come in, they want to be that character they saw in the movies. They want to pretend to fence. They don't want to fence. They just want to pretend to fence. And if all you want is their money and you don't really care about teaching them anything, and if you don't care if they learn or not, well, they're fine. You let them bout, you take their money, and they move on, and they're never any good at it. But they might keep coming and giving you money because you're letting them pretend and they're having a good time. I've had students that came to the cell. I had a student that came to the cell for years. I mean, for years, Daddy-O. And over all that time, never displayed one whit of improvement. I don't even know how to explain that. You'd think just by osmosis he'd learn something. But the cat kept coming back because he enjoyed something. I mean, he enjoyed being there with the group. He enjoyed doing it with the sword. He enjoyed hanging out. There was something in it that he was digging. It was not getting better at the sword, but there was something in it for him. And that's okay. That's okay. But I don't think I'd want to make a whole Sal like that. I can accept one student like that. I've had one like that in 40 years, right? But I wouldn't want a whole room full of people like that are just there to fuck around. Because you don't need a fencing master to do that. Any clown, and many clowns do, any clown can come into the room and hand out foils and let people poke and hope and then collect the money. You don't need a fencing master for that. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question that often goes with this conversation about early bouting.
All right.
If you don't let them bout early, then how do you keep them interested?
I don't keep them interested. They're either interested or they're not. It's not my job to keep them interested. That's their job. Is this what you're after or not? You'll know. Look, when I was teaching at Cornell, and we had the physical education registration tables where people come up and they sign up for this thing and fencing and tennis or whatever the hell else they offered. Sometimes people would come up to me and say, gee, I don't know, should I take tennis or fencing? And I would always say, take tennis. Because if you don't know that you want to do fencing, you should probably go ahead and do something else. That's my belief. I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of students. I've seen students who, took fencing because tennis didn't fit into their schedule. And that's the kind of student they were. They only took fencing because tennis didn't fit in their schedule. I've had a lot of students who juggled their schedules so they could take fencing, right? I've had some students take intro to fencing 4 or 5 times over and over again. I think, this is my opinion, you don't have to agree, this is my personal opinion. The student that I really want, for me, this is just me. The student I want is the one who doesn't choose the sword. I want the one who feels that the sword has chosen him or her. Right? I want the person who doesn't even know why they want to do it. They just have to do it. They just need it. Can't explain why. They always say, there's just something there's something about this. I don't know what it is. It's just, I just have to do this. That's my student. Because they're nuts, just like me.